All right, friends. Well, I want to welcome you to another episode in the Run Breiter Podcast. Friends, today we have on an incredibly special and unique guest. I'm honored to say we are joined today with Brooks Bash. For anyone who doesn't know Brooks, he's got an amazing story. And let's just first note that he's not the owner of the shoe company, Brooks, but he is an entrepreneur. He's a runner that recently accomplished an incredible milestone that very few, I can guarantee you, will do. But it's going to provide some amazing perspective for you, regardless of your running ability. And I'm just really excited to get to know your story deeper here today, Brooks. So, Brooks, I want to hand it off to you. Do you mind doing a quick introduction for the audience? And I got tons of questions to ask, I'm certain.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the rockin' intro. But yeah, my name is Brooks. I like to call myself an adventure athlete and also entrepreneur. Um, yeah, my physical sort of fitness athletic career started when I was really young. My dad was in the military, so we moved around a lot, like 15 different times before college, and so didn't really have much of a hometown or like stable childhood. But the one thing that was always there was sports and athletics and being outside, and that was like the one sort of place that was familiar to me. And so my parents did a great job of instilling the love of health and wellness and fitness in me and just like loving being outside. So very grateful for that, that they passed that along to me. And so that just love and passion for fitness has been in me for a while. Like every kid, played every sport. So that I went up to college. I played basketball. After college, I became a CrossFit trainer. I've really been in all different types of sports my whole life, and so yeah, really from that, after being a CrossFit trainer, I really threw out my back and really hurt myself doing that, and so that really spun me off on a huge self-healing journey. I was told by doctors I'd never be able to be active again and I needed surgery and pretty much my like athletic career was done. And so I told them, no, thanks, not going to do that. And basically instead of opting for what they told me, I went this whole other direction of like healing myself. And so over a 3-year period, I was able to do that. I changed everything, my diet, my lifestyle, supplements, just everything. And it worked. And so from that, I birthed this new passion for endurance sports. I got really into swimming. That was huge for healing my back. And then that led me to triathlon. I was like, okay, wait, I can still compete and get after it. And enjoy triathlon. I got up to do a 70.3. I started with the sprint, then did the Olympic, and then 70.3. And I was ramping up to get to the full Ironman. And then COVID happened. And basically all the races were canceled, all the pools were closed. And I was like, all right, well, I don't really like biking that much. And I can't really swim anywhere. So I guess I'll just start running more. And so that's what birthed this now new chapter of running for me. And I think the mix of like being outside and almost like as a kid, you're on an adventure and just exploring, that passion like rewoke within me. I did my first 50K trail run, and literally within the first like 30 seconds of the race, I was texting my wife as I was running, being like, this is awesome. You just felt like you're a kid, just like running off into the woods. And so from there, it really just, yeah, sparked this love of adventure and just seeing what I'm capable of. And so, yeah, that kind of, I could take it a million different directions, but that's a quick run through of at least my athletic background.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the context there. And it sounds like you've evolved into many different stages of your athletic career, but I'm glad at this point, I know you said you've been dealing with the back issues previously. The endurance sports has allowed you to continue to be a competitive athlete, but also make sure that you're keeping the back strong. And there's so many benefits of endurance sports we see when we talk about
Mhm.
building up strength in those areas. So I'm sure you've definitely seen that. But do you want to walk through that a little bit deeper? Like, how has the transition to both training for triathlons and specifically being focused in on running helped in that area for you as an athlete who, when doing cross training, it sounds, or you said it was, CrossFit and other competitive sports, it sounds like it triggered some of that injury in the back.
Yeah, there's been a lot of things. So I like dissected every angle of it, and so diet has been a huge thing for me. I I'm now plant-based, and so that was a huge thing that helped my back a lot. And so I was back in the day, I would be the guy at Chipotle who would get, chicken and an extra steak and just load it up. And
Yeah.
I'd be like, no, I could never not eat meat. And so, but honestly, like I was to the point where I literally couldn't walk or like couldn't do anything. It was really bad, my back. And so I was like, you know what? I will literally try whatever it takes. And so I don't know how I got. Oh, my mom has been not lifelong, a long time vegan, and she's seen a lot of improvements from like inflammation, and so I was like, you know what, like I'll give this a shot. And so slowly I would take different food groups out. So I started with just like red meat and then chicken, and then kind of slowly just took stuff out. My back just got better and better and better, and I was like, well, this is working. And also my energy levels started going up and up and up, and I was like, all right, well, this isn't bad. And so kind of just kept experimenting, and that was like, this is working great. So then like in the meantime, I also, stopped doing heavy weights and really just like the aggressive Olympic lifting that I was doing, which I don't know if anyone necessarily needs to be able to throw around that much weight over their head. Um, but that's a different topic. And so I started doing more yoga and more stretching and more just like sort of body weight exercises, which for my injury, I have two bulging discs in my low back. So they don't really go away. And so for me, it's like, how do you protect it? So removing the inflammation, strengthening the core, really protecting it has been really, really helpful. And then yeah, and then endurance sports, swimming, like I said, was amazing to just really kind of protect the spine and really lengthen it with low impact. And then now I'm into running. It's really just avoiding jerky, jumpy movements, and so running is very like rhythmic, and there's a nice flow to it where you're not like jumping this way or going for a layup or landing weird. So yeah, and then on top of that, different supplements, and different herbs that are really good for anti-inflammatory as well too. So it's a whole approach of kind of a lot of different things that have been really, really helpful for sure.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I really appreciate you digging really deep into that. I think it's really helpful to know. In terms of plant-based, I want to ask you a little bit about this because I actually, for a small period of my life, was plant-based, and then I did like weekday veg, I called it, where I was fully plant-based during the week, and then on the weekends, I ended up eating meat. And over the last 2, 3 years, I've honestly, like, I haven't stuck with it. I think the biggest challenge for me with that, there's really two challenges. One was that I found when I was increasing my mileage, I really had a hard time getting like the right sources of protein at like an economical cost. And then also like kind of the opposite, when I would go out to eat and like spend time with friends, family, I felt like it was really challenging from a social standpoint. But like I would love to hear from you, like how have you overcame some of that, both on the protein side, like making sure you get the right amount at the right cost, and then also just like socially dealing with some of the pressures that can come with sharing a plate of chicken tenders.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of like a cost point of view, there, you can go and buy these like really expensive fake meats and this and that, and those aren't necessarily the best ways to be getting plant-based protein, and so I mean, I eat a lot of beans. Beans are really, really cheap. And if you buy them in bulk, you can get them really, really cheap. A lot of lentils, those are an amazing source of protein too. Also very cheap if you buy them in bulk. Even like tofu is, great. That I eat a lot of tofu. We get a pack at Costco of like 6 of them, and it's ridiculous how inexpensive it is. And so, yeah, I think it's just trying to avoid the trendy, ultra processed sort of fake meat stuff that can be pretty expensive, and really focus on like where can you get the most natural, like real actually real sources of protein have been really, really helpful for me too. There's something called tempeh, which is also from a soybean, great source of protein, really tasty. So yeah, there's a lot of fun ways to just like, you know, do it differently. I mean, Indian food is amazing. A lot of that's pretty vegan or plant-based, and can be done relatively cheap too. So it's just, I didn't start knowing all this. I just slowly started to work my way into it, and obviously it helps that my mom's been doing it for a while. But now there's so many. You go on TikTok and or Instagram and just search like vegan creator or vegan food creator, and you'll see endless recipes. So that kind of really helps make it a little bit more easier. So yeah, that's been super helpful in terms of socially. Where do you live?
I live in Denver.
Okay, all right. Well, that's not as I'm in LA, so I'm like it's really not too difficult here to like socially. Denver, I do know it has some cowboys though, so maybe they're um, a little not as nice on the vegan side, but yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's like if you're gonna commit to it and believe in why you're doing it, then whatever. People will give you. I don't know if you can cuss. People can make you feel bad about a lot of things, but if
You
you're
can
just doing
curse.
you, okay. It's like people give you shit on whatever, and so if you just don't let them phase you, then that's their thing. Pretty much every wedding I go to, it's always I'm the one like vegan plate. Me and my wife are the two, and like everybody else is eating something else, and we have our own little plate. So they're always like, "We'll make sure to take care of you," and we're like, "Thank you." So it comes with the territory.
Well, you're adaptable, and I definitely am not closing the door on doing it again. And I think it's really good advice though for like people who might have that inflammation or some physical issues and want to try something new in their diet and see what works for them. So I really appreciate that advice. But I really want to shift gears here and have you talk about your recent accomplishment with running, which I know I foreshadowed at the beginning of the episode. I'm really intrigued to like learn more about this journey. So I think you know what I'm talking about. If you don't mind sharing it, I know the audience would probably really love to hear this story.
Sure. Yeah, so I just completed running 100 marathons in a row. So, 100 days, 100 marathons back to back to back times 100. Yeah, it was a pretty insane challenge. I started a company called Earthy. It is a supplement designed to give you clean energy and focus before you run. And so, in a stunt to like, how do we make some noise about this? How do we show that this thing works and get the word out in a big way? I said, you know what? I'll run a marathon a day and do that for 100 days straight. It was actually open ended. So originally we did it we were in the middle of a fundraise. And so I said, I'm going to run a marathon each day until we hit our funding goal. And so as I was doing it, I really didn't know what the end point would be, which was super interesting. And we can get into it like psychologically, not knowing that there was where the end was. And then once I set the end, it was really crazy. Yeah. But it was an insane 100 days. The human body can do insane things if you push it and really go for it. Um, yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. So if you don't mind like digging into the psychological piece, right? Because
Sure.
I mean, the physical side of things, yes, we can both agree that running a marathon more than once or even once in general, it's a very hard physical challenge. But do you mind digging through like what you were dealing with each and every day as we're going through marathon after marathon after marathon?
Yeah. Yeah, it was and it wasn't just running marathons. Like I'm also, the founder of this company. And so I also was like working 8 to 9 hours a day on that. And so it was
Oh
like,
wow.
and I'm married. So I'm also, trying to not get dumped. And so it was the hardest part was juggling all like life, work, and the marathons. And so that psychologically was the hardest part. So physically, the first 2 weeks were really, really painful. Like my joints and bones and everything just were like, what the heck? What was interesting though is it kind of like got to a point where then my body got used to it. And so like the first 2 weeks I had to take ice baths every day. I was, Theragun, that just like whatever I could do to recover. And then all of a sudden like was like, I skipped a day icing, and I was like, wait a sec, like I feel fine. And then I was like, another day of not icing, and I still felt totally fine. I'm like, all right, well, I'm definitely not going to get in the ice water because that sucks. And if there's no added benefit, then why would I do that? Um, so physically, I kind of got to a groove where I could just do it. And so then it turned into like, how do I wake up, get a good 8 hours of sleep, and then wake up and then do it all over again. And so each day was different. Like, and I would do a marathon distance every day. So it was like, it wasn't all like 26.2 in one go. It would be like, okay, I wake up, I can do 10 miles before this first call, and then I'll do that call, and then I'll do some work and have some lunch. And then typically I would do 10 in the morning, work all day, and then do 16 after work. And so it would be like tail ends. But every day was different. Some days we'd have dinners and I'd have to like get up way early and do it. Some days it could only have to fit it all 26.2 before like 10 a.m. So I'd have to get up really early. I wasn't going fast by any means. So it was taking me 5 to 7 hours usually. And so that was also a strain on trying to fit in the rest of the life. I got really good at like sending emails and texts and stuff like while I'm running, which was pretty funny. But psychologically, what was super interesting is I got to this groove of like, okay, this is working. My body feels fine. Pretty much from like marathon 15 through 90, I was like, everyone's like, how are you? How's your body? Like, how are you doing? And I'm like, I'm good, like surprisingly good. And I felt good. My body felt good. My mind felt good. I think that's a huge testament to our product, Earthy. Like, there's a lot of really good, powerful ingredients in there that really help keep your mind clear and focused. And also, there's ingredients that really promote a lot of healing, blood flow, and oxygen. There's one mushroom called cordyceps, which increases the production of ATP, which is literally how your muscles get energy. And so I only thought of that as like a performance, like a pre thing to give you energy before you're doing it. I hadn't really thought of it as a recovery. But I kept waking up being like, why do I feel so good? And I did a bit more research in how other people have used those ingredients, and there's a huge recovery component to it, which was really rad to learn and like experience, literally make me my own experiment, to be like, oh, okay, this works. So that was super cool. But what was interesting was, so I was in this middle area of like, I didn't have an end date. I was just going and going and going. When I got to
Yeah.
marathon 94, we were close enough to our funding goal where I was like, you know what, 100 is a clean number. It would be good to just like, it was on a Sunday. I was like, we could do a big like group run party. Why don't I just cap it at 100, and then I can use that extra time to like finish the rest of the fundraise. And so the second that I mentally set that 90 on day 94, I said I'm gonna stop at 100. The second that happened, everything fell apart. Like it was like my body was holding it all together. Was like, okay, we have no idea how long this guy's doing this, but like we're here. Like, this is what he wants to do. And the second that my legs and arms and everything was like, oh my gosh, we get to stop in 6 days. They were just like gave up. Like, I got so tired. I got so sore. Injuries started flaring up. It was just like I started dreading it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is bad. Like, and so I think everyone assumed I was going through that experience the whole 100 days, but really it was those last 6 days that really, really got to me. I had an injury flare up in my ankle on day 100 that I literally couldn't have run 101. Like, I was like limping, walking at the end. Yeah, which was crazy. So it like held it together as long and right to the end, and then was like, all right, we need to rest.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting, like, because it makes me believe that so much of like the stuff we go through and struggles when it comes to like physical, like, yes, there's broken bones that are not mental, but like when we talk about soreness, even, I think so much of that can be so mental because it all relates. Like when people run marathons for whatever reason, like so consistently, it's mile 18 to 22, the historic time where people hit the wall when they're like 80-90% through. And it's the same thing with you. Like, you were doing great the whole way through, and then when you knew
Yeah.
there was an end in sight, you were a couple days away, equivalent to a couple miles away for someone else who's running a big race.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same thing. So it's just so interesting kind of how that worked. Just like I'd be curious in general though. I mean, this is obviously an unbelievable accomplishment. Like I have a goal to run a marathon in 50 states if you don't see Run 50 behind me. And
Yeah.
like that's like my cap, I feel like, for my life. But like you did that in less than a year. Obviously not across different states, but the number of marathons, right? You did that very
Mm-hmm.
easily, it looked like. But I'm just curious, like, what did you do to actually prep for this? Did you do anything? I know you have years of experience as an athlete, which I think has obviously contributed to some of the success. But did you train at all for this specific experience?
Not really. It kind of, I like, how do you train for it? It's almost like the training was happening as I was going, And so, yeah. So before this, to launch the brand, this is like our thing, is doing these ridiculous stunts at Earthy. And so before this, to launch the brand, myself and someone from my team, we biked. He biked, I ran, and we went from Canada all the way down to Mexico over a 30-day period. And so we did like a little relay thing. And so I would say that was training, because that was 30 days and I averaged like 24 miles a day doing that. And so maybe that was,
Mhm.
I think it just like unlocked my mind of like, oh no, like limits don't exist, And so thinking something as crazy as running across the country from Canada to Mexico and then doing it, and you're like, well, I was doing it every day and I'm fine. I'm still me, and I'm not like falling apart. And so mentally, like, noticing that and being aware of it and like stepping into that, I was like, oh, okay, well, we can do anything we want. And so having that mindset going into um, the 100 days, it was never a question of like, could I physically do it? It was more of like, how do I just make this work type of thing.
Yeah. No, that's really incredible. And I appreciate you sharing that. So you've obviously completed this 100-day challenge. I saw also you recently announced like your next challenge as well. Do you want to share what that is and also like your motivation for that next challenge?
Sure. Yeah. So if people have heard of the Speed Project, it's kind of like an underground, people don't talk about it race, but there's an Instagram profile. So it's not like it's super secret. Um, so what it is it's typically a relay race. It starts in Santa Monica and you go out to Las Vegas. There's no rules, there's no course, there's no spectators. It's just get there as quick as you can by running. And so, yeah, relays, typically it's a team of 6, I believe. And so some teams will, run 5 miles at a time and switch. Some teams will run 1 mile, and it's just as quick as you can get there. That's not what I'm doing. There's also the solo version. And so that starts 4 days ahead of that relay race. And there's about 30 of us that will start at the pier and, yeah, basically run to Las Vegas, which is, depending on the route, 300 to 340 miles over, a 4 to 5 day period. So, yeah, that's coming up in 2 weeks, actually.
Yeah, that's super exciting. Definitely got to keep me posted about that experience. I'm sure through your content, you'll definitely be able to do that. Um, so you've obviously done this 100 days of marathons. You've got another big challenge coming up with the Speed Project. There's a lot of people though who might just be going for their first marathon, or maybe they're just trying to get into running for the first time in general. I know you've obviously had years of experience as an athlete, but maybe some of these folks also have not really been active for years or maybe even ever. What type of advice would you have for someone who is sitting in those shoes to really encourage them to give endurance sports and running a fair shot?
So I would say to that question, running has become such like a chore or like a punishment in our society, where people don't really do it for the joy. They do it because they have to, or they do it because they want to look a certain way, or, because a coach made them do this. And I think we've really lost that joy of running and movement and feeling what it feels to, go for a run. And so someone who's looking to get back into it, I would say almost like don't set a big ambitious, if you're like really struggling, maybe don't set this crazy big ambitious goal of to go out and do something. I would say just go for a run and have fun. Like I typically actually hate tracking my runs, and so like I don't wear watches. I don't like to use Strava. I had to force myself to do it during the marathons just so I could track them, but typically I don't. And it's so freeing. It's so fun. If you want to run 6 miles, if you want to run 2 miles, just go on Google Maps, search something that's a mile away, be like, okay, if I run there and back, that'll be 2 miles. Got it. And then just go. And if you want to run fast, run faster. If you want to walk, walk. If there's something you want to take a picture of, take a picture, just like really enjoy it and find the like love of it versus the like pain and chore of it. That'll come later of like if you're training and wanting to do something, but like I think if you start from this place of joy, then the rest can kind of build from there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, then that makes a ton of sense. And I know that people definitely appreciate that advice. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Um, so shifting gears yet again, I want to talk about Earthy and your entrepreneurial journey because I find talking to people who own businesses to be really exciting and just really cool to like hear the journey to entrepreneurship. And then I'd love to give you some opportunities to dive in deeper as well about what Earthy is and, who would really benefit the most from it.
Sure. Yeah. So my entrepreneurship journey has been my whole career. I went to school here in Southern California and then jumped right into a startup. We were a sports complex. So we hosted large scale soccer tournaments and events and concerts in the whole world. And so did that for a while until COVID happened. And then we got shut down in a big way, being a large scale event facility. I then went during that time when I was working there was when all my back issues were going down. And so I was in this phase of like learning and exploring different things while I was working there. While I was doing research on different, herbs and Chinese medicine and things to heal myself, I stumbled upon some of these different functional mushrooms. One's being lion's mane, which is really good for memory, attention, focus. One being cordyceps, which is good for blood flow and oxygen. I was like, whoa, these seem like something that would be great, to take in a product before you go for a run. And really, there wasn't this focused, clean energy out there that existed. And being in all types of sports, I've tried every pre-workout, I've tried every energy drink, and they're all just the same sort of like, scratch your face off or super jittery and then heavy crash. And I was like, there should be something more natural for people who, it doesn't make sense to put something sketchy, like unhealthy in your body before you go do something healthy. You should really like bless your body with something good before you go push your limits. And so, yeah, I had that thought and that mindset. A friend of mine had started a mushroom gummy company using some of the similar ingredients. And so I said, hey, I could go help them out and learn a bit. And that's what I did. So I did that for a year. It was going really well. Unfortunately, I caught those founders lying about what was going in the formula. Some people were having some weird reactions and we were getting a lot of questions. And yeah, it was just absolutely not true what they said that was going in it versus what was actually in it, which is insane that people can do that and get away with it. And because the FDA doesn't regulate the supplement industry, you can get into national distribution and have a big business and no one's really checking on you. And so that didn't sit well with me and wasn't cool. And so I left that company to then start Earthy. And so for Earthy, our main principle is that, we're completely transparent. We literally tell you every ingredient in the formula. We tell you the amount of each ingredient and then down to the farm exactly where it came from. So you can just be aware of exactly what's going in your body, which sounds normal, but like is super, super bold in the supplement industry. No one's doing that. And so, yeah, our first product, we're calling it a pre-movement supplement. So basically what that means is, pre-workout, energy drinks, even coffee sometimes, just really give you that jittery sort of anxious energy and then lead to a crash, which if you're running, if you're doing yoga, if you're going for a swim, climbing, all these other types of movement, you can't really afford to have that type of crazy energy, And so I went out and really pulled together a list of ingredients that each one was very intentionally selected. So whether it be those mushrooms I mentioned, beetroot, even the caffeine source is a very calm, like focused caffeine instead of a typical, get you peaked up and then crash caffeine. So yeah, it was designed very intentionally to give you that focus and energy for whatever it is you want to do. Run, bike, swim. It's even great as a coffee alternative. So I drink it before I work to really just give you that focused energy. I do have really bad ADHD. And so this one mushroom lion's mane really helps with focus and has literally helped me be able to sit down for long periods of time, which is awesome. So yeah, that's our first product at Earthy. Our bigger mission at Earthy is, we're in a time right now where we've never been more disconnected from the earth and from each other. And with things like these goggles and AI and just everything's so divisive on social media, there's never been a moment where we need to reconnect more. And so our big mission is to reconnect people to their bodies, help them be more aware of what's going in them, help them, reconnect to the feeling, like I said, of joy, of movement, reconnect to each other, go outside, go to run clubs, meet with people, and really just like, remove the screens and get back to like meeting with people in real life. And then of course reconnect with the earth. So that's back to my childhood of going outside, running around, and really just like seeing the beauty that's out there so that we can all be inspired to take care of her.
Yeah. I love that story. I love the vision for the brand. I think it's really important what you were talking about at the end, especially like getting back together with people, connecting in person. Like, yeah, you and I both create content. And so if people are on the screen, we want them to see what we're creating because like I think we're trying to direct them in a way where they can go ahead and get back outside. And so yeah, I love that about the brand. And when you were talking about like energy drinks and some of the reactions that people can have, I mean, I personally haven't taken a pre-workout myself in probably 2 years at this point. I used to always take it when I was like probably between the age of 17 to 23, 24. I would run and then I would go to the gym in the evening and I would need like that extra kick of energy. So C4 I would take a lot, and I used to drink like a lot of Red Bull as well. And then I had like one bad experience with Red Bull, and then after that I've been fully off like any sort of pre-workout type of, substance, I guess you could say, or supplement. So like I'm definitely open to, trying Earthy, because it sounds like it's a bit more calm, less anxiety, would come with it, and it's made from more natural supplements. So that's really good to know. And I know you said you'd share a sample with me, so I really appreciate you doing that, and I'll definitely give it a good crack and recommend it, if it works well for me, right? I'd be curious though, when I was taking pre-workout for a while, it was good. The one thing that was always bad about it though is like I would take it 3, 4 o'clock, maybe even 5 o'clock before gym session. And then being able to sleep that night was always impossible. Do you find that you could take this later in the day and still be able to sleep, or do you mostly recommend this as like a morning supplement for someone?
No, you can definitely take it later. What's interesting is that, like me personally, I have a coffee curfew, so I can't drink coffee after 2 p.m. or else I won't be able to sleep at night.
Hmm.
Earthy, I can drink 5, 6, 7 p.m. and sleep totally fine. It's just
Wow.
it's a different level of caffeine where it's hard to explain where, it doesn't get you that like kind of crazy antsy, but it just gives you that smooth focused energy. So yeah, I would say, don't take it at like 9, 10 o'clock at night, but if you're going to go work out and push yourself, yeah, you should be able to sleep totally fine.
I'd be curious. So, yeah, where do you go ahead and actually get Earthy for like those who are interested in buying it? And typically, like, what's like the proportions that someone will take each day? What does that all look like?
Yeah. So it's about, if one serving is about the size of a cup of coffee. And so we sell it in a month supply bag. You can go, if you find me on Instagram, you'll see Earthy tagged everywhere. And on Earthy's Instagram, you'll find the website and the whole deal. I would say is the best way to start.
Awesome. No, that all sounds great. Well, Brooks, this time spending with you has been really incredible. Just learning more about your journey to running and endurance and all the challenges that you have coming up. Just, I think you have a lot good coming with you, and you're providing a lot of good for the world. So excited to see how you and Earthy progress. And I really appreciate you coming on here today. I guess, before I let you go, are there any final words you'd like to express to the audience before we let people know where to find you specifically on social media?
I think you asked a question earlier that I don't think I answered, and that was like, if someone's how do they go from nothing to like running 100 marathons or a marathon, something to the extreme. And so I would say to that, just find your own version of that. If it's 100 marathons is obviously very ridiculous. But like you can find your own version. So like what you're doing with the Run 50, that's awesome. And I don't think you should like downplay that as it's nothing compared to what I've done, because you're also hosting podcasts and doing a bunch of other stuff, so like don't downplay it, and you should really be excited and proud of it. And so for other people, find out what that is that like you can feel that like we have a new line at Earthy, and it's like get back to wild, and that's not like get back to the wild. It's like no, get back to wild, and that's like whatever that call is within you that you can feel and it wants to come out. Let it out, and so if that's something like Run 50, if it's something start a podcast, if it's whatever it is, just find that and let it out, because the world needs it out.
That's amazing. Brooks, where do the folks listening go ahead and find you so they can follow you and continue watching your journey here?
I am on Instagram at just Brooks Bash, BROOKSBASH, and easy as that.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time. And if there's anything I can do in the future to help you out, whether that's with Earthy, you're running, whatever it might be, Denver to LA, it's a little bit of a trip, but I'll always let you know if I'm out there, and always happy to repay the favor for you coming on in any way I can. So I
Cool.
appreciate it so much. And to everyone listening, we really appreciate you joining this episode of the Run Breiter podcast. Go ahead and give Brooks a follow. If anyone needs any running tips or advice or a running coaching plan, feel free to reach out. And as always, do not forget to run brighter. Thanks, friends.